Reporter destroys ancient QB on live TV. Doesn't know Tom Brady is listening. What happened next will leave you absolutely speechless. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. It was a frigid January evening in Boston, and the ESPN studios buzzed with the electric energy that only comes during playoff season. The building's glass walls reflected the city lights as snow fell steadily outside, creating the perfect backdrop for what would become one of the most talked about moments in sports media history. Jake Morrison sat behind the polished desk of SportsCenter, his perfectly styled hair catching the studio lights as he shuffled through his notes. At 28 years old, Jake had climbed the ranks of sports journalism through a combination of sharp wit, ruthless ambition, and a willingness to say what others wouldn't. His expensive suit fit him like armor, and his confident smile had charmed viewers across the country. But tonight, that charm would be tested in ways he never imagined. The red recording light glowed ominously as Jake prepared for his segment on aging quarterbacks in the NFL. His producer had given him free rein to be controversial, to generate the kind of viral moments that drove social media engagement, and Jake was never one to waste an opportunity. His notes were filled with cutting remarks about older players who he believed were holding back the evolution of the game, particularly one quarterback who had been dominating headlines for over 2 decades. "Good evening, sports fans," Jake began, his voice carrying the practiced authority of someone who had never actually played professional sports. "I'm Jake Morrison, and tonight we're talking about the elephant in the room that nobody wants to address. The ancient quarterbacks who refuse to retire and make room for the future of football." His eyes gleamed with the anticipation of controversy as he continued his prepared remarks, the studio cameras capturing every word for broadcast to millions of viewers. "Let's be honest about Tom Brady," Jake said, leaning forward with a conspiratorial whisper. "The man is 46 years old. In a sport where most players retire by 35, he's been playing professional football longer than some of his teammates have been alive. And yet somehow, we're all supposed to pretend that this fossil still has what it takes to compete with the athletic marvels of today's NFL."
The words dripped with disdain as Jake painted a picture of irrelevance and decline.
"I mean, come on.
Jake continued, his voice rising with mock incredulity.
Brady moves like he's underwater, throws passes like he's afraid of getting hit, and his decision-making shows all the speed and agility of a retirement home resident playing checkers. The man won his last Super Bowl through pure luck and a defense that carried him like he was their elderly grandfather at a family reunion." The studio audience of production staff shifted uncomfortably, but Jake was just getting started. And don't even get me started on his so-called leadership.
Jake rolled his eyes dramatically.
What exactly is he leading them toward? The nearest early bird special at Denny's? The guy probably needs help remembering the playbook, let alone executing it under pressure. Brady represents everything that's wrong with the NFL today. Old men clinging to glory that faded years ago,
While younger, more talented athletes sit on benches waiting for their chance to show what real football looks like. The truth is,
Jake said,
with the confidence of someone who had never faced a professional pass rush,
Brady should have retired 5 years ago. He's embarrassing himself, his team, and the entire sport by pretending he can still compete at this level. Every snap he takes is a reminder that the NFL has become a nursing home for has-beens who can't accept that their time is over.
He paused for dramatic effect,
his eyes scanning the teleprompter for his next devastating line. What Jake didn't know was that Tom Brady had arrived at the ESPN studios 20 minutes earlier for a surprise interview appearance that had been arranged at the last minute. Brady had been sitting in the green room, just off the main studio, reviewing his own notes, when Jake's segment began. The 7-time Super Bowl champion listened to every word, his expression remaining calm, but his jaw tightening with each insult. The man who had redefined longevity and excellence in professional sports was hearing himself described as a washed-up relic. Meanwhile, Jake continued his verbal assault, completely unaware that his target was within earshot. Honestly, I think Brady's just scared to face reality. He's afraid to admit that he can't cut it anymore. So he keeps coming back season after season, embarrassing himself and disappointing fans who remember when he was actually good. The younger quarterbacks coming up behind him must be laughing at how pathetic he's become. Jake's voice grew more animated as he sensed he was building toward a climactic moment. And let's talk about his physical condition. The man looks like he belongs in a museum, not on a football field. His arm strength is gone, his mobility is non-existent, and his accuracy has declined so much that his receivers have to become acrobats just to catch his wobbly passes. Brady is living proof that some people just don't know when to quit, with dignity. That's when the studio door opened quietly, and Tom Brady stepped into the room, his presence immediately changing the atmosphere. Like a sudden shift in barometric pressure before a storm. He was dressed in a simple dark suit, his gray hair perfectly styled, and his piercing blue eyes fixed directly on Jake Morrison, who was still mid-sentence, completely oblivious to the fact that his world was about to change forever. The production staff noticed first, their eyes widening as they recognized the man who had just entered their workspace. Whispers began to ripple through the room, but Jake was so focused on his performance that he missed all the signs. Continuing his tirade with the enthusiasm of someone who believed he was delivering career-defining television. And honestly, Jake said with a cruel laugh, I think the only reason Brady keeps playing is because he's too proud to admit that younger, better athletes have already surpassed him. Tom Brady cleared his throat, a sound that cut through Jake's monologue like a knife through silk. The reporter's head snapped up, his confident expression faltering as he found himself staring directly into the eyes of the man he had been destroying for the past several minutes. The studio fell into complete silence, the kind of quiet that precedes either a miracle or a disaster. Brady's presence filled the room with an authority that 22 years of professional excellence had earned him. Evening, Jake, Brady said, his voice calm but carrying an edge that suggested he had heard every word. His smile was polite, but his eyes held the intensity of someone who had faced down the greatest pass rushers in NFL history and emerged victorious. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. Jake's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air, his confident media persona crumbling in real time as he realized the magnitude of his situation. The cameras were still rolling, capturing every moment of Jake's humiliation as Tom Brady stepped closer to the desk, his movements showing the same poise and control that had made him the greatest quarterback in NFL history. I couldn't help but overhear your commentary, Brady continued, his voice steady, but with an undertone that made it clear this was not a casual conversation. Very interesting perspective from someone who, I assume, has extensive experience playing professional football at the highest level. Jake struggled to find his voice, his face cycling through shades of red as the reality of his situation became clear. He had just spent 10 minutes destroying the reputation of a man who was not only listening, but was also standing right in front of him, with cameras rolling and millions of viewers watching. The arrogant sports reporter who had built his career on tearing down athletes was about to learn what it felt like to face real pressure for the first time in his life. What would you do in this situation? Comment below. Have you experienced karma like this? Share your story. Who do you think was right? Team Jake or Team Brady?